Well, welcome everybody. And today I am going to attempt to provide you with a complete overview of this process, which is nearly impossible, but we're going to do it. And it really begins with a little bit of a backstory. So when I was taught this, it was not taught to me in this manner. So there wasn't a real strong explanation of here's the process, this is what you should expect, and all of that. It's just show up, go through the process, experience it, ask questions in 7 years. That was basically and that was an unstated agreement in itself. But traditionally, when you learn this type of thing, that's how it is. It's not a Western paradigm. It's basically the Donghan Taoist clan. And generally, the way you do it is you commit your life to it. There is nothing. You just check in. Here you are. Here's your robe. Let's do this. And so my struggle was to translate this into more of a Western culture. And it was a constant mantra that I had with my grandmaster. This is amazing. Thank you very much. No one's going to do it because this is nuts. Who's going to sell their, possessions, sleep on the floor, eat kimchi, and follow you around like a pleb? They're not going to do it. And learn the language, deal with the culture in order to get this information. And back then, there was no Google. There was no way to get this information. It was almost on the, almost wizardry. It was that far out. So if you wanted to get it, you really did need to subjugate yourself to a certain degree, to get the information. And thank God we don't have to do that anymore because you can Google it, a lot of this stuff. So I was taught this information, and what I didn't understand was that there is, like on the front end, in the middle of it, it's like the forest. If you're in the middle of it, it's really chaos. But if you can step back far enough from it, you'll realize that it's really quite deliberate and unbelievably organized, And so going through the process, it seemed pretty much organic, and whatever is happening is happening. Oh, wow, that's interesting. But then after a few years, probably 4 to 6 years, I realized there was a cycle, that this isn't just some random experience. There's an actual cycle of reoccurring themes, reoccurring activities, reoccurring emotional experiences, reoccurring physical movement, reoccurring diet. It's like, this is interesting. But it wasn't, again, explained to me like that. I just lived it. And really, it took probably 18 years to truly say, wow, that is as clear as a bell. Now, I'm a slow learner. You would have probably got it in 2. But, I was also a kid. So when I started, I was 16, 15 at the time, this particular lineage. So what I realized is, no, it's a cycle, and it's really, really deliberate, and it's something that's constantly reoccurring. It was before my experience, certainly before anybody's, within my lineage. It's just the way it is. It's the Tao, it's the natural flow, it's the order of things. And what I've come to look at it is kind of like a journey around the sun. It's really what it is. It's a journey around the sun. It's a seasonal process. And I noticed that because of, again, the activities and the conversations that our grandmaster would have with us as we lived in this anja, as they called it, the Korean version of an ashram. And there was always reoccurring, there wasn't a textbook. There wasn't even a whiteboard. As a matter of fact, you weren't even allowed to take notes, because he's like, I remember I was taking notes, and he said, what are you doing? I'm taking notes, Grandmaster. I want to catch all of this. And this is like day 2. We haven't slept, haven't eaten, because it torment you too while you're doing this stuff. He said, so are you hungry? I'm like, yeah, I'm really hungry. So he took a box of Triscuits, these horrible little crackers, and he threw it at me, and I caught it with my face. And then I was like, he says, go ahead and read that. So I read the ingredients to the Triscuits. He says, now give it back. Are you full? And I'm not full. It's good. And he put the Triscuits right next to him. And there you go. He says, so that's not how this process is going to be. You're not going to study this process. You're not in college. You're going to live this process, because we don't care what you know. It's what you become. That's what's going to change the quality of your life. So that was kind of a watershed, moment for me. It's like, yeah, wow, okay, good. So it's about, okay, that's not going to work though. The other guy in my head is like, yeah, good luck. Because my job was to become an apprentice, become an instructor, and perpetuate the lineage. Because his argument was, listen, I'm not going to be able to do this because I've only got a few madmen that are willing to completely, basically come over to my side of the rainbow. Your job is to come to the side of the rainbow, deal with the insanity of it, and then translate it. You're the bridge. So everything I'm teaching you, you must teach, but you cannot teach any of it the way I taught you, which is think about that, And if I decided that we're going to do a workshop, it's going to be wonderful, and I'm going to take you through the traditional, experience, you'd all quit. And half of you would just get injured, and the other half would just quit because it's that. Maybe a couple madmen would make it, but yes, she would. And so, but you see, so that's not doable. So that was always my argument. And then his statement was, yes, that's correct. So it's going to be your job. You know your culture, you know your language, you know how it, the Western paradigm is going to work. You need to literally repackage this and make it so that the masses, because, when I first started teaching, I thought I was pretty good. And I had quite a few hundred members, students, and I was only like 21. And I had a huge center, and I was great. And I've said this story before, but it really illustrates a point. So my grandmaster would come and look at the centers and kind of audit your process, and then you'd go home, and then he'd tell you what he saw. And so he came to my center, and I was very proud. I was only a few months into it. And there it is, all my students. And they were a million Michael Leones. They were all, short, angry Italian guys, 18 to 22, just really hairy. And they were committed. They were great. They were really good, And he looked around and he said, Mike Leone, and he walked out. That was it. And then he gave me a really hard time that night. He says, so you're just favoring yourself. You're not qualified. A real instructor could make the tall short and the short tall, which means you should have young, old, male, female, the whole rainbow and spectrum. If you're qualified, beginning teachers will favor themselves. And you'll see it a lot of times. If you go to yoga studio or something, all the members are just like the teacher. They even sometimes dress like the teacher. That means that teacher is pretty limited, or they're just learning. They're just starting. So the real work is, how can you translate this path in a manner in which an 18-year-old or an 80-year-old, all of the different races and all of the different economic classes, it still resonates. Because now you've gone past the ego, you've gone past the programming of Poe, and you're speaking to that namaste piece, the consciousness. You cut through it, age, culture, economics, and you speak to the humanity in each client. So that's not easy, especially when you're 21, just to comprehend it, and that's when I took 2 steps back and says, okay, I need time. And then he looked at me and he says, oh, you need time. That ended well. And so he took this calendar that happened to be framed in wood, and he threw it at me. Of course, because I was like his worst, rock-headed student. He literally called me a rockhead. And in the no mind. And so I caught that one. And he said, go ahead and circle the day of your death. I'm like, what? It's like, he said, go, if you know when you're going to die, only then do you have the right to request more time. Because you don't know, you might be dead tomorrow. You have no idea. You don't have time. The last thing you could ever ask for is more time, because every moment is a gift. Become qualified now. Have the mind seal moment. Know it and be it now, or leave. And that's just how he did it. It wasn't a warm, fuzzy approach, So again, the lineage was pretty intense. You're dealing with a gentleman that was also, a veteran of the Korean War, a ROK Marine major, combat guy, So there wasn't a lot of love and light. Let's feel the chi. It wasn't a yoga experience. There were no yoga blankets. It wasn't like that. So, okay, none of that would work today. None. His approach would get you in jail. That's what that would happen. I'd have nothing but lawsuits and injuries and stuff. So, okay, this is where the Zen wellness process and this whole, paradigm, though, did root from an authentic, legitimate lineage, direct transmission experience, but still useless because it needed to be translated. And that's where this concept of the journey around the sun, or even explaining it that way, because this is what I have found. The Western mind needs to know before it goes. We don't do subjugation. Just follow me. I'm the master. If I tell you I'm the royal master, well, we like to hang our royals. We don't do good with royals. That's this Wild West mentality. So it's like, okay, then I have to approach you more or less from a little bit less faith. Don't believe me. Know that this is a process. This isn't a promise. This is a process. And so you almost have to outline your process up front. And then the people, if they can kind of understand it, then they'll follow it. So ultimately, at the end of the day, there's basically gears, if you will, or timetables that we're all subject to. The first big gear is literally your lifespan. So we started talking about the journey around the sun and how many times we go around the sun, and how your lifespan and the different phases of your life affect your mind, your energy, and your body. Jing, Qi, and Shen is what we would call it. Jing, Qi, Shen is really affected by, on the most broad level, the seasons of your life. Okay? So we say, okay, the first season of your life was 0 to 8. You formed your ego. This is called the wood period. This is a really pliable period. This is when you establish your name, your gender, you become identified with your culture, your story. All of these things are necessary. Really has a lot to do with your parents' karma, actually, and the certain amount of imprinting that happens at the formative years. A very important part, because we usually spend the rest of our life recovering from the first 8 years. It's just the way it is, but it's the price you pay for being here. Whatever you believe in, but that's what your soul could afford, being born there with that information, that culture, those resources, in this body with these abilities and this intellect. That's what you got. Okay? And you come in, but to a certain degree, you can say, but it's not my fault. It isn't your fault this time, but it was last time. That's what you earned. 0 to 8, formation of ego. And it's a really important piece. Now, very few of us come in with parents that are like, oh, this is the formation of ego time. And we really need to develop and foster, and let's handle gently. Let's not imprint them with any negative emotions. Very few. Now, I have a 4-year-old and a 14-year-old. I'm pretty good. I'm a disaster, though, right? When it comes to kids, you say stuff, crazy stuff that you don't think that they're going to pick up. What was it? Yesterday, I was talking to my boy, and I said, "Well, how did it go at school?" He said, "It was going really well, and this and that." But then some of the boys were throwing the sand, and one of the little girls got it in her eyes. And I said, "Well, what did you do? What were you doing?" He says, "Well, I was just sitting there like a gaffayo." I'm like, "What did you say?" This is little Italian boy. I said, "Where did you get that?" He says, "You, Daddy. I hear everything you say." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Wow, I never would have expected that." And I says, "Well, son, next time maybe you could do something about it." But they pick up stuff, and it's always negative stuff too. You know what I mean? And so that's just how it is. It. It's never pretty. So that's the first 8 years, and those are formative years. We call that wood, springtime, sprouting, upward, motion coming through the beginning. Okay. Then from this 9 to 33 is your flowering. Now, from 9 to 33, this is your lifespan, your early summer. The color is red, it's a fire energy, and it's like, wow, look at me. This is what I'm going to be. I'm so sexy. Check this out. Anything can happen, right? From that pace. And you really are at your most awesome as far as just your physical appearance and your flowering and your potential. So that's a very important part of life. And it's really going to kind of show you what seeds were planted. So, gardening, a lot of times the sprouts all look the same. You don't know it's a tomato plant or whatever until it flowers. The flowers reveal the fruit. And so you could kind of start to see. Now you can do course corrections throughout this period. These are 5-year blocks, again, based on the 5 elements. Okay, so there's wood of fire and earth of fire and metal of fire and water of fire. And, pardon me, yeah, you get where I'm going. And so these are phases we go through. Now, generally what happens is this phase here in the beginning is very I think Vedic would call it tamasic, where it's all about destruction. You destroy everything, right? When you're a little dude. And more importantly, your job as a parent is not to let them destroy themselves. And so, oh, no, grab that. Oh, put that, take that out of your mouth. Take that out of your mouth. There's 7 marbles in their mouth. You're right. It's destruction. And the cells are, they're not just, they're producing, not just dividing. It's just boom, 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 boom. That's an explosive period in life. And that whole period is all about being very destructive, because when you remodel your kitchen, it's destructive too. That level and magnitude of growth is destructive, right? Positive or negative. You could take the word negatively, but it's not negative. Then once you get into this phase, that 9 to 33, it becomes about selfishness, but it has to be. It goes from being destructive to yourself and everything around you to, oh, it's me now. A lot of time in the bathroom, it's all me. The whole world is you, right? Anybody that I've got this one and a 14-year-old. So I've got both, okay? This destructive stage and the selfish stage. And we all go through these stages, but these stages set a trajectory for the rest of our life. And usually you're not aware of it. And definitely your parents, especially in our generation, they were lucky, to have food or something. You say, when I was a kid, I walked barefoot. All this, how it was. It wasn't the enlightened group, but they were a good generation. They worked very hard, and I get it. So going through that destructive stage and then going into the selfish stage is really a key piece. Often, though, we don't make it through. Okay? In other words, we go through in time, but these qualities stick on us. So some of your destructive behavior, unconscious, carries through. And then some of your selfish behavior, because you're unconscious of it, carries through. And then by the time you get to the earth phase, 34 to 58, which is the earth, the fruition, now I've grown up, I've got my education, got my family, got my home, got my career. I did all this stuff. It's the manifestation, it's the mundane, the necessary gear for life. And really, you're still acquiring everything you need to play the game. In the Taoist tradition, it takes 58 years for a human being to grow up. You're still considered adolescent, child, growing up, teen, growing up until 58. Problem is, very few of us grow up, we just grow old. We're all guaranteed to grow up old. Very few grow up, because it takes a certain level of consciousness to grow up, and unconsciousness is free. You just grow old. So this is a key piece. So now you're supposed to go into the selflessness phase of life, where now, you're working. Here it was, party, spring break, get a tattoo of an eagle on your back and all the crazy crap. Now it's like the money I was going to spend on a tattoo, I'm buying a little tricycle. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to Hawaii for 3 months. My kid's going to Montessori. You see it? Forget the convertible Mercedes. We need a pool. So all those phases, right? You've all lived it. And so you're forced to become selfless. And these are evolution. This is evolution. And not all of us jump through all of these phases. So we carry these qualities, in varying degrees, which ultimately affect our mind, which then ultimately affects our chemical reaction to the reality we're in, and then our body. Our very quality of life is actually based on this evolution. So sometimes when we look at, I'm sick, I'm depressed, and I've got a problem, we look at the problem, but we really don't want to look at the whole story that got you there. And often the disease or the problem isn't the problem and isn't the disease. It's just an indicator of your consciousness, how you're going through life. So, and by the time it shows up, it's usually chronic enough to express itself, physically. So really, when you want to fix something, you got to go to unravel the whole thing and go back and start to reflect and refine and remove. And all of these experiences, as we speak about in our lectures, are not only stored in your mind, but they're actually stored in your cellular memory, your body. So you have to remove all of this, in some cases, bad programming that keeps expressing itself in mental, physical, or emotional disease. So we started talking about Zen wellness. Being well is ultimately Zen, now, being now. But usually we get kind of trapped in this phase. Now, most of us acquire so much damage by the time you hit that earth state that it'll start to express itself. You pay for your sins at 50. All those partying and all of that, So you went from cocaine in the 80s to Rogaine, and all of these, because you're bald and you're blown out. You're trying to, so you pay for your sins. If all of you went through this whole thing unconsciously. So there becomes almost a whispering in the ear. And usually we go through, that's a midlife crisis, because we went through so much. We might have nailed it, with the stuff. We got the stuff, we got the career, we got all the stuff, but there's something wrong. Because what we realize is you got all the gear, but you're not playing the game. This is just the gear, the education, the home, the things. The game is ultimately realizing that you are consciousness momentarily residing in form, going through an evolution in education. You're not really like a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. You're a spirit having a human experience. And so, but this is such a identifying with form part of the wave, So you've got to identify with form. You better know your language. You better get a car. You better pay your bills. You better do all of this stuff, or you're never going to find the higher levels of consciousness. So it's like a trap. So you got to go totally identify with form in order to survive in the world of form. And then you got to let it go and say, oh yeah, and that's all bullshit. Which is really hard, because by then you're so invested in your stuff, in your career, in your identity, and it's like you're blinded by form. And then you realize at about 58, it's all impermanent. Now, Joey died from the old neighborhood. All of this stuff, everything starts breaking down and dying. Like, oh, wow, everything that's a form is unstable, impermanent, and on its way out. So I just bought into death. Our culture is a big, fat death culture because we're completely into form, which means we're completely into things that die. Beauty, right? If you're not, up on the stage twerking, you're not going to make the money, right? I was going to actually wear a thong for you guys and do some twerking. And so, right? Because that's our culture. If I want to fit in, that's what I need to do, I guess. So we're totally drunk. My teacher used to say is doce by form. Drunk, blinded by form, identifying with form, believing you are form, believing you are your possessions. We weren't even allowed to say anything was ours. That was the robe you wore. It wasn't my robe. That was a car you drove. That was the center you managed. That's the food you eat. Nothing's yours. It was really hard too. I lost my keys. Whose keys? Ah, damn it. And I'm late, but you can't say my keys. I lost the keys to the car. Constantly reminding you and trying to sever the Western connection to form. It was brutal. And so everything is mine. Nothing's yours, except the experience you're having. So that was just very impractical, by the way, teaching. I don't do that. You'd think I was nuts anyways. That's the shirt you wear. And you'd be like, okay. So, but there's a message there, because breaking away from that form, if we identify with that form, this is what creates all the suffering at about 50. Is you start realizing, oh my, this is all unraveling. And guess what? I identify with it all. So I'm going to suffer the illusion of impermanence myself. I think I'm my stuff. And my stuff is dying. And so then the fear of death, this is where depression, anxiety comes from. Depression is about, but I was so sexy in the 80s, the past. The anxiety, shit, what am I going to do when I'm 90? That's the future. So you can't rest in the moment because you're identifying the moment with stuff, and stuff is falling apart in front of you. So that's a disease. And really, you have the skin, the chunk, but really it's designed to facilitate an experience for your consciousness. But we don't identify with our consciousness, we identify with our chunk, which is death. So tough piece happens strong. Most of our members sign up at about 48 to 50, because they're like, huh, what's happening here? And they don't know. And if they don't sign up, they just buy another convertible. But either way, because you'll go back into form. Well, maybe hit that button again. Maybe that's what I'll do. Get a new wife, get a new house, get a new car, get a new career, because that's all I know. Life is just form, right? That's what it is, right? No, get the stuff. You make the environment conducive to sit in tranquility. So begins metal. So when you get to 59 to 83, it's really supposed to be about the fall, which means everything falls away that is not you and does not serve you. That's when you let go. In Oriental medicine, metal, fall, lungs, large intestine, and skin are all within the same system. All of these things are designed to remove waste. You remove waste through the colon, waste through the lungs, and waste through your skin. You cut away everything that is done nourishing you and everything that has broken down. We don't. A lot of times what we do is we acquire baggage and we keep it. Now we've got a story. Now we've been wounded. Now we've gotten pretty rigid. And that's usually why most of us die in the fall. And it's not that time isn't what killed you. It was this time that killed you. So you can be lead or gold. They can be the lead years or the golden years. But it really does depend on your ability to remove waste. And that means your own waste, your story, let it go. Become light, become a higher, let's say, refined version of this metal. And so this is the very important piece. Metal is about cutting away. And so if you can, you wind up ultimately going into the 84 to 108 phase, which is the sage. Because now there's more consciousness and energy than body. So even when people see you and remember you, they don't really remember your stuff or what you look like, and your rock hard ass in those tight yoga pants. You're 83, okay? They do remember your energy, though. They do remember what you had to say, and they do remember how it felt to be around you. It's a totally different experience. So what you're doing is you're affecting the people in this journey, their definition of what their future can be. Even at, from 59 to 83, you start to give a stronger metal reflection of the potential of this human experience. And it's not, yes, you need stuff, don't get me wrong, but ultimately you need stuff to create an environment conducive to cultivating your higher self and preparing yourself for your future, which is death and all of eternity. And you can't be chasing the bills, dealing with anxiety, dealing with all these wacky things. That you're supposed to have done the work. And you're supposed to be able to rest in tranquility and clarity, so this constant shines through. So the people see it. What we do is we take the people in the older that are supposed to provide us a positive reflection and the wisdom, because water belongs to ancestral chi and wisdom of the meaning, of purpose, and direction of life. And we hide them. And we put Miley Cyrus up here instead. You see what I'm saying? And that's what if you're following that, you are following hell. That's what you're doing. You're going, a lot of suffering. And so honoring the elders. But why? Because most of our elders, let's go back to the Po, right? The metal is either gold, right? Or it's lead. So most of our elders are, in fact, belonging to colon, which is shit. Nothing inspiring about it. So you don't want to see it. You flush it. You hide it. So it's your responsibility to be something other than shit at that, from 59 to 83. That is one of our Zen Wellness greeting cards, by the way. We send that out on the holidays. And so we're always about bringing you up emotionally. And so, so this is really the piece. Because then what starts to happen is the first, remember we talked about not damaging yourself, you know what I mean, and others, and then taking care of yourself, and then ultimately being in service to others. Those are the three stages of evolution. Very few of us make it, maybe in varying degrees. But once you improve yourself, the very act of improving yourself will, in fact, by this level, improve the world. That's the beauty. If you get to that point where you're an individual that cultivated yourself at that stage, just the physical act of being there, walking through the room, inspired, stable, mobile, graceful, mindful. You see, I know because when I was a boy, my teachers, I was lucky enough to be imprinted. So I had two options here. Imprinted by a guy with a fedora, cigar, and an Eldorado, right? That got, shot in the head in a parking lot at the age of 40. It's like, there's my future. Or these wacky Asian people that are like amazing, a different kind of strong and a different kind of cool. It was like, that's kind of cool and strong. Not like this. This was cool and strong too. But it was a very, very, very dark, cool and strong. But there was power there. So it did really attract a lot of people. And then comes these, I remember my teacher, the first thing I tried to do was round kick him in the head from behind. I figured if I nailed the guy, I might get a discount. And so, right? Why not? Give it a try. Well, that's how I was raised, So he blocked it and broke my foot. And he's, it's like, there you go. He said, what are you doing? I said, you're going to give it a try. And so, okay. But that's when I realized these guys, and then, a few times unknowingly bump into them, which you're not supposed to do. Like when you're training and they're in the room teaching, bow. And I thought I hit the post and it was him just looking at me. Well, there's not a lot of old dudes that you bump into. And when you hit them, you fall down. So I kept seeing, hey, what is this? A certain level of inner, just, wow, that's stable, really, really stable emotionally, really, really a lot of wisdom. Oh my God, I've never seen anyone move like that. Never. Who the hell? So it kind of disassembled my paradigm of success and reassembled it. And that was there, right there. So that kind of saved me, really changed me by being that powerful example. And it gave me something, okay, I can see I'd rather be that than some morbidly obese Italian guy in a nice suit. You're right. That was really, I had a choice. And so I chose that. And I think I chose wisely because most of my associates and friends are already dead. So, and those that are alive, they don't move around that well. So this is a really key piece on how that person changed themselves, but at that point in their life, they changed the world just by being the change. It's a really important piece. And so we go through this whole concept of, this journey. So this is the biggest gear. Now, how do you do it? Right? We got to go click, click down. Well, it's a process. It's not a weekend workshop. You can only be initiated. Like I can introduce you, I can point to the moon, but you're going to need to build a rocket ship and get there. Yeah. And so what it is, well, all of these experiences become you. Yeah. So enough karma. You have these experiences, you do this behavior, and after a while, it goes from the surface of your body into your body. Does this make any sense? So you have to bring it out. It's literally in your cells. You have to literally replace the cells. You have to literally replace every cell of the body. I know it sounds crazy. What do I mean by that? About 7 years, 7 to 10 years. So you're not leaving. Okay. And you hear everything lock up and stuff. You all got a locker here. Here's your food. So 7 to 10 years. Now that sounds unreasonable. Okay. I know that. It's very depressing. But so when you have these cells happening in your body and every experience that you have, negative experience, unconscious experience, stress experience, greedy, all this stuff is programming these cells, and these cells divide, create, and manifest to express this, right? Now you have to spend 7 years of a certain way of thinking and moving and being. So now when these new cells show up, they're in that new person. It takes time. You got to move out all the bikers and replace them. And the experiences you're having over these 7 years is not what you learn, it's what you become. So then it's literally deep in you. That's your karma, because at first it's kind of like, okay, here, then it becomes you. And if you're not careful, not only does it become you, it's kind of what you leave with. You don't want to take it with you. You see, you'd really like to get rid of all that. So it's going journeys around the sun deliberately about 7 to 10 times, where each now season, you're literally dealing with different emotions, that have to be basically dealt with, different physical parts of your body that have to be basically dealt with, and different ways of, let's say, moving, sitting, standing, right? These are the process. So with each season, we move, we stand, and we sit. We move to remove cellular memory, right? We move to basically make sure the whole system itself. See, the more you're into the form, the energy body starts to die. Okay? So the more you relate to the form, your actual shell and your stuff, your energy wanes. You actually are made of three components. There's a consciousness, there's an energy body, and then there's a physical chunk. Now, even Western medicine can validate that. You can photograph it. You can measure it nowadays. In Oriental medicine, they just say you have the meridian structure. I think they call them nadis, right? In nadis and marma points in the Vedic tradition. Go anywhere, they're all going to say the same thing in different words. I like to always cross-reference and see, all right, this group is talking about this. Oh, how about this group? If they are all looking at the moon, they're going to point to it. They'll be wearing different gloves, but it's going to be the same moon they point to. So there's the three bodies. Now, the more unconscious you become, the heavier the physical body becomes. You literally become heavy, actually heavy. The older you get, the heavier you get, even if you don't gain a pound. Why? Because the energy body starts dying out and the consciousness inspiration starts leaving. The inspiration and the energy is measured by literally how quick time goes by in the moment, how vivid that time is, how much like you engage, and it's like you're still being stimulated. Right? Go for a walk with a 4-year-old. Everything they find is amazing. Oh, look, Dad, it's a pointy stick. I know, son. Put the pointy stick. Oh, it's gum. Can I eat it? No, it's been on the. Everything is an exciting adventure, right? We're not like that. We see nothing. We can walk through an amusement park and just be on our phone screaming, buy, sell. So we get shut down. The soul or spirit or inspiration is just, it played it over and over again. It's no longer. The childlike nature of joy of the moment is gone. So that means inspiration. That's called the separation of Hun and Po. Po is the physical body. Hun is the spirit. Okay, so that's is very separate. Then all of a sudden, you are heavy because the energy body is starting to die as well. The rate and speed in which you can get off the ground and stand, oh, get that. No, it's gone. So you can see the energy's dying. So you wind up being this rotting husk of skin and bone. And with a little bit, and the only thing really keeping us alive in most cases is we're either not strong enough to live, really, and we're certainly not brave enough to die. So we're in this kind of half-living phase. And the average person spends the last 20 years of their life like that. And that's a very unconscious way. So the Taoist immortal lives every day until they die. Even if you die at 30 or 100, that's still immortal. Because mentally, physically, and emotionally, they were engaged. They learned something. They did something. They laughed. The whole thing. They were there. They weren't just in some coma trying to live maybe through a screen. Maybe that'll work. Or some gossip or whatever then you wind up picking up wacky things that'll just stimulate and bring you back in, which happens to be usually some sort of addiction. So can you maintain the light body? That's really the work. So a lot of our practice goes into each season. So if, for example, if we wanted to start with, where are we now? We're in the winter. Yeah, because when you begin this program, that's the beauty. It's not college. It's not a straight line. This is a circle. It's in rotation and repetition. So no matter where someone jumps in, they showed up at the right time. So you jump in, oh, it's the winter. Okay, well, this is what we're going to focus on. What is the winter doing? What do you mean? Well, each season has a message. Nature has a lot to say. We don't listen to nature anymore. We just look at, our watch. We don't even wear watches, our iPhone. I'm an old guy with a watch. It's like, really? And so we are just totally disconnected. But by learning how to observe, we use this thing called contemplation, observation, and meditation with each season, the 3 activities. So we contemplate. That's what we're doing now. We're contemplating. We're trying to get a little bump in perspective. Then what we do is we try to observe the truth of it in the moment. So, okay, that guy had a lot of crazy stuff to say. How much of it can I see in reality? How much of it can I really see in my life? If you cannot observe the root power, it's kind of useless anyways. And then the real trick is wisdom, remembering. Wisdom is remembering. Meditate is to keep your eye on something, to meditate. So observation, contemplation, observation, and meditation are the three tools in which we cultivate, and it's really the three components of the elixir for the true disease, which is unconsciousness. Your unconsciousness is expressed, as is mine, in your body. And we all think, again, well, I'm suffering this disease and you're suffering that disease and you're not. We're all suffering the same disease. But because of our elemental constitution, that disease will express itself based on you. So mental constitution, the disease will express itself, large intestine, maybe lung, maybe skin, Crohn's, asthma. Oh, wood, okay, liver problems, connective tissue problems, eye problems. Oh, heart, well, that's fire. So you'll see really, but it's all unconsciousness expressing itself. It usually starts with the hollow organs and goes into the solid organs if it's chronic enough. So it seems like a big mystery. It's not a mystery. We all suffer the same disease. So you start to see, okay, this is a winter time. So how is the winter? What does the winter have to say? What does they call it? The Tao teaches us the just so, or knowing how. So if we can look at the movement of the earth, yeah, and the heavens, as man divides heaven and earth, then everything you need to know is going to be right there in front of you. And so literally the weather, the position of the stars, what are the plants doing, will tell you what's happening to your body. And your body, whether you like it or not, is completely connected to this. You think you're cool, you think you're unique, you think you have some type of autonomy. To a certain degree you do, which would only be on a shun level, but the monkey is on the program. We all experience, come the winter, right? We all experience, there's a darkness in the winter. The predominant color technically should be black, right? And the darkness also creates fear. There's always a fear. Now, what do I mean by fear? That's fear for loss. Sometimes, though, it could be lament looking back. If you look at our holidays, that's where we bring a tree in with light and stuff like that and hope the time's going to come back and the wheel, the Yule tide, is it going to roll? Uh-oh, is spring going to show up? We all do it. The Christmas spirit, right? It's the most miserable time of the year. Most of us kill ourselves. I mean, it's like, really? Total water. All water. But you think you're having, I feel like this in the winter, I'm special. No, you're not special. We all do. But you're unconscious of that, so you think you're special, which always makes it more tragic. If you realize everyone does it, if you're the only person in the room with a nose, it'd be a tragedy. But everyone's got a nose. Does that make sense? Yeah, my son thought he was the only one with a butt. Dad, am I the only one with a stinky baby butt? I'm like, no, son, we all have a baby butt. It's stinky. So then he was good with it, but he went through this phase where he thought he had an affliction. It's like, no. So, but see, and quick, he let it go. You see it? So it is that easy to see. So the winter is going to affect, so that's the shan level. This is how the winter affects our consciousness, our shan. Then, guess what? It affects your jing, your physical body. Well, what do you mean? Your bones. If you have joint issues, they're going to hurt more in the winter. Sorry. Kidneys are affected because you know what? It's hard to regulate your internal temperature when it's cold. According to traditional Chinese medicine, kidneys are responsible for regulating internal temperature. That's why when your endocrine system changes, your reproduction structure changes, you get hot flashes, all this stuff. It's kidneys. It is that simple. So we study that. There's so much to learn. And I'm not going to, all right, we know everything about winter. Good job. It's not going to happen like that. You're going to look at winter. You're going to study winter. You're going to contemplate it and see cycles over the years. Then after a while, you'll start to develop an intuition. We even use like a tool. We have the silly chart. Winter. Oh, really? What's the predominant color? Black. Oh, what's the predominant taste? Salty. What's the predominant direction? North. What about the solid organ? Oh, kidneys, hollow organ. Oh, that's bladder. What about the body? Ears are the function, right? We do it. We come up with a list of all things winter. And after a while, black to you simply means salty, north, kidneys, right? It's just one thing. That's what you want. Ascending words and just having an image that encompasses. Words are very limiting for the mind. Think in images. So That's the lesson. And then we say, okay, guess what? Here comes spring. Oh, what's spring all about? Well, it's movement. It's going to be connective tissue. It's going to be liver. It's going to be eyes. It's going to be gallbladder. It's going to be time to move. In the winter, it was time to sit. Easiest time to focus on meditation. Hard to focus on meditation in early summer during the 4th of July on the beach with people running around half naked with fireworks in their hands and you're all oming. It doesn't work. But on a wintry night in a cabin, it's really easy. Even in the morning, it's still dark. You can just drop right in. Use the seasons to leverage your practice. Do the right thing at the right time takes the least amount of energy. A lot of us, it's just not knowing. So in the springtime, we focus on, guess what? Now's the time to get those hamstrings flexible. You were sitting, now let's move. Let's clean the liver. Let's realize that inspiration, hun, is the main one. It's about aggression sometimes. Oh, guess what? You're going to get allergies sometimes. Your eyes are going to hurt. And all of the gallbladder meridian gets flamed up sometimes. We know it, what meridian's going to act up, what emotion's going to show up, what the right activity is, what the right food, deep, leafy steamed greens would be nice, down to everything. What's the right activity for this time of year, right? And we already know what's the right activity for this age. Then we say, oh, here comes summer. Well, focus on summer. Early summer is the flowering. So you were starting to stretch and move. This is, when you really get the heart, circulatory system. This is the time to do that, high activity, sweating, cardio, all of that. If you want to be, and this is what we do in the West, we join a gym and we do the same goddamn workout all year for years. A, you get diminishing return, and then B, it starts destroying you because you're an imbecile. You keep doing the same thing. It's like, really? Really? It's like, yeah, all I do is eat thick, beefy, hot stew every day. I know, but it's 116 in August in Phoenix. You got thick, hot, beefy stew. You're going to have agita and diarrhea all month, and wonder why, So that's what we do. We're just, we don't connect. We think we're outside. Everything else knows they're a part of nature. The birds migrate, the flowers open. Everyone's on the team. They all get the memo, but we don't. So this is about reestablishing your connection to the information that's happening as we take our journey around the sun. So then we look at the small muscles. We look at the heart. We look at the small intestine. All these issues. We look at joy, the energy, but you can get excessive. You blow your hand off on the 4th of July. I mean, it sounds silly, but if you look at even the colors we use during the seasons, right? We use these colors predominant. Easter with the greens and the pinks and the red, white, and blue and we do it. We think we're having a unique experience. No, we're not. Even our holidays fit by these colors, attitudes, and activities. Our commercial holidays. Then you look at, here comes late summer. Now we're dealing with fruition, the fruiting, sweet. It's fun to eat sweet things. It's best. Your body wants the watermelon, the things, right? The ripe papaya. It's good. And muscles. Now, if you're going to work on your muscle mass and you really want to get the highest return, I lift weights 4 weeks a year. Look at me. 4 weeks a year. Why? Because the rest of the time is a waste of time. It actually does more damage than good. You get more out of leveraging muscle during muscle than trying to play muscle all year. You'll just pull yourself apart. Then you got to treat the body throughout the year to maintain, restore, and, but you need that. Also, this is the time of year when it's a great time to look at yourself. I mean, really? We like to hide under wool. God forbid, all I am is a perfectly manicured face and great nails. But you're rotting flesh. No, peel it all off, stroll down the beach. How do you like me? Now it's like, oh God. So, because this is lights on. This is form. This is consciousness. This is different time. So if you want to see what's left of your physical body, you'll know now how strong you are, how active you are, all your physical, like run up and down the mountain, run down the beach, play badminton, do whatever the hell you're into, you're going to know. This is going to tell you what's going on with your biological aging. It's just, that's it. You're never sexier than the early summer and late summer. It's just how, I know, it's depressing. So I expect, everyone to send in your Polaroids or your bathing suit shots, and we'll post them. And so, God forbid. And so, but do you see it? So now we deal with stomach, we deal with spleen, the emotions. In this particular case, is there's two sides. It's a great time to acquire knowledge, to truly see, but it's also you can worry. Where this time it's a great time for joy, but it can also be shock. This time it's a great time for benevolence and right action in the spring, but it can also be aggression. This time it can be a great time in the winter for wisdom, but it can also be fear. Those that are not wise are filled with fear. You see, those that don't know worry. You see, so one side, yin yang side. There's a both side. You can tell what type of emotion am I having this season will tell you how conscious you are. And if you're experiencing predominantly worry during late summer, there's a certain level of unconsciousness happening there. And if you're worried about what's going to happen, study it. That's a yi, acquired information. It'll take your worry out. Write a list, a to-do list, something. You'll take the worry away. So if you know your nature, you can work with your nature consciously. There's the subconscious piece of you that just is kind of running on autopilot, and you don't have your hands on the wheel. You don't even know what's happening. So you're going to create suffering. Then you get into fall. Now, fall, all of a sudden, energy starts to drop. The energy of fall starts to go inward. Fall, you start to cut away those activities. Fall, you start to reflect. Fall, right? We have the ghosts, and right? It's the time now, and the holidays will express it. Fall, the lungs. Now you get large intestines, so the flu shots, guaranteeing you'll be sick. And then, so that fall affects the skin. Fall affects, even if you look at the age 59 to 83, that's when you start wrinkling and creping. It all fits. We think we're having a unique experience when in fact it's formulaic. So that which understands the Tao could coexist within the Tao. That which does not is consumed by the Tao. Suffering comes from ignorance. So if you look at the concept of this is the journey around the sun every year, and you spend 1 year, at least the first year is just like, oh, wow, learning about it. What do you say? Then the next year, it's like trying to see it. You see, then the next year is remembering it in the moment. And then we look at it over and over again, because I can drill down. I talk 10 weeks about each one of these elements. 10 weeks, 10 physical lessons where we show, okay, this is winter. Now we'll first show you the winter standing posture. Oh, now we'll show you the winter, healing sound to get rid of cellular memory. Oh, now we'll show you bone tapping. Oh, now all 10 lessons with 10 ways to basically deal with how your body is being affected by that season. It's, if I dare say, genius. I didn't make it up. Now, I went through it, but I didn't know it. I just didn't know it. Now, after a while, like, there's a method here. And I have found if I can explain the method to you, as opposed to saying, do it now, think about it later, more of you will have success. Our problem with the Western culture is we have no faith. We have knowledge. So the more you know, the less faith you'll have. And sometimes, and actually faith, they can argue, is for people that don't know. If you don't know, then just believe me. But if you're in a culture that kind of knows, manipulates, and evolves stuff, you need to have the information. And then you'll be fine. Either way. My teacher said knowledge or belief will get you there. Usually when you're young, you can move based on belief, which will provide you inspiration. But after a while, the belief is almost blind. And unfortunately, most sources are corrupt. So then what happens is you become your believer, and then you find yourself, with a styrofoam cup full of Kool-Aid, and now you get jaded. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid. So then after a while, you believe in nothing, which is a mistake too. So you can't just rest on belief. Then you have to apply that belief so that it becomes knowledge. And even the most radical beliefs, if you take enough time and research them, are true. Usually they're child stories designed for the ignorant. But if you take the time and you come up with some of these beliefs that people talk about with ghosts and the Trinity or whatever you're into. I used to have a theologic, debate with my uncle and my aunt, which were a priest and a nun, Roman Catholic, and I was just getting into Taoism at the time, and we would go back and forth. And it was great. It was great, and so, and it was all the same. So there's cultural pieces, in the Roman Catholic tradition. There's great outfits. But it's whatever. But if you take enough time, you'll see, hey, well, you know what? This might, sometimes things get lost in translation. But if you go far enough back and get past its bureaucracy and whatever corruption, if it's made by man, by the way, or governed by man, it's like man will look at nature and try to organize it like this. This is my best attempt. And now, if this actually lasted 1,000 years, it'd be so corrupt. You know what I mean? It'd be the corrupt church of Mike, where everyone must give their first big toe or some weird crap. We'll show up because we got involved. Does that make sense? Man-made interpretation of anything that's true is always corrupt after a while. But that doesn't mean there isn't truth. So you can look at these things through observation, contemplation. Like we talk about, the knowledge is the fifth chakra, right? And so, but you need to do time, which is the fourth chakra, so that you can illuminate the sixth chakra, which is the third eye, truly seeing. So at first, it's like we have to, in this group, we just have to talk about knowledge. And then do your time. When you do your time, it's not just, it's like, okay, if I had 8 years of medical school and never operated on anyone and had no time in the field, you wouldn't be comfortable with me taking your gallbladder out. You'd want, I know, but I haven't done it. And you might have a guy who was some indigenous hut liver, that's been taking out gallbladders for his tribe for 47 years and never stepped foot in a hospital or a school. You'd rather have him do it because he's been taking out gallbladders for 47 years. Does this make sense? So we have to take knowledge and experience. Knowledge and experience. Mixing the fourth chakra and the fifth chakra illuminate the sixth chakra, which is the eye that can see beyond the form. Does that make any sense? That's called wisdom mind. So the journey around the sun is designed to do just that. Then we can even get crazier and drill down to the journey as not only is to get the sun moving around, right? The earth moving around the sun, but the earth is spinning. So there's another elemental influence, which is the daily Hare cycle clock. So your body also changes throughout the day. And that's why you wonder, you are always changing. Your emotions are always changing. You know how you're physically reacting to the environment's always changing. So it's really hard to be consistent if you believe you are these emotions. You have to realize, oh, this is happening to me because it's that time of day. This is happening to me because it's that time of year. Now, all of a sudden, it's not as personal. You can look at it as a third party and not be subject to it. Does this make any sense? So let's look at that just for the crazy hell of it. All right. From 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. is stomach in the morning. High tide. Energy runs through the body in a cycle where the body basically does maintenance and it's most active at different times of the day. Western medicine has validated it as well. So what we do is, okay, and then from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is spleen. Okay, who cares? Well, let's think about that. Stomach is most active. Great time to eat. Eat what? Anything yellow. We love yellow. Eggs, toast, oatmeal. We do it anyways, right? Spleen time, great time to study because that's yi. Acquire knowledge. That's why I have this lecture now. It's the best time to sit and learn. At a certain point, there's diminishing return. You can try to study that contract, but it'll only get worse throughout the day. If you really got to get something done that's really important to you and you really need to acquire it and you need to nail it, 9 to 11, spleen. That's when you acquire and assimilate. Now you're working with your daily body clock. So now you're kind of, coexisting. And then you move into what happens after that. Anyone know? So from 11 to what? Yep. Now all of a sudden we're going to go from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We start to get into heart. Now it's time to move. It's an active day, right? And then from 1 to 3, we get in the small intestine. Now, depending upon what you did, right, what's going on and how connected you are, you're either going to be in your real prime or you'll need to sleep. Because that's when the small intestine and everything's active, trying to assimilate everything from breakfast and all the information that you just acquired. That's why we sometimes get the dump. Does that make any sense? So you can activate your behavior based on this. It's very, very important, piece. So you can go through this whole cycle. So now from 3 p.m., right, till 5 p.m., or is it, what's next? Yeah, kidney. That's right. There it is. I thought it was black because black to me is kidney. And so I'm looking over there. It's not working. So, so it's a kidney, right? And that's basically it's the best time to be real knowledge. Like you just rely on your natural talent. You don't have to think. You don't have to be contrived. You don't have to. You can just set in and be. If that makes any sense, there should be almost a tranquil water energy there, and it's. I'm not going to say it's not the most productive time either. Don't buy a car built between those hours. You see, you'll notice that. Productivity changes. Don't call up customer service and expect them to nail it during those hours, right? Watch this. You'll see it. It's just how it works. And then 5 to 7, a lot of us eat, okay? But really, the big meal should have been here, 1 to 3. Yeah, that's when, and you'll notice after a while, you have to make it your big meal or it's just going to sit here and rot. Okay, so that's you can see how we have this, you know, general, process. Okay, what's next? Anyone know? So we're 7:15, 7 p.m. So it should be. Oh, I don't have triple warmer up here. So pericardium, yeah, that should be back up there, and triple warmer. Now from 7, right, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's really the best time to brush your teeth. Is that what? Yes, we really focus on the gums to a certain degree. Yeah, I mean, wow, but okay. So that's a good time to build up internal chi. Great time to train. That's when a lot of people do yoga, qigong. That's a great time to be active, and that's that night bump. Okay, and then the most important is from 11. Okay, that's when you need to be asleep. Okay, and that's a really important time because now we're going 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. We should go asleep because the liver needs to clean out the mess that you've created all day. Okay, it's a very important time. And then 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. is generally when you hunt, travel, and dream. So whatever's happening, if there's anything deep and crazy happening with any truth in any message, that's usually when you'll have a strong dream. And if it's strong enough, it'll wake you up. That means the energy body is processing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you start snoring like a son of a gun. And that's 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And that's lungs because you're really trying to expel everything. And then from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m., it's large intestine. It's time to empty the bowels. And then you eat. And if you look at your body and you kind of train your body to work with this, you'll coexist. You'll experience a lot less suffering. So we've got 3 clocks that we really watch as far as dealing with Earth, standing on Earth, being run by the electromagnetic pole running through us, up through our kidney 1 technically, and our Hoi Yin, our perineum, running this show. That's the Wi-Fi signal. And the big clock is your life cycle. The next clock is your year. And the next clock is your 24-hour cycle. Those are the 3 gears moving. If you can jump in and know what's going on with those gears, you can also treat conditions too. Later, we start to talk about how you can treat different parts of the body based on the time of the day to maximize your result. That's also a way to tell what's going on with your body. If you experience different pain or different things show up, you're like, holy crap, that's pericardium. I have something going. Oh, that's heart. You can tell. Oh, you can see what's happening with your body by the way what it has to tell you. So the Zen wellness concept is to just take this stuff, provide you with a structure where you can participate in it. And we go through, okay, this is winter, everyone. We're going to do 10 weeks. So we'll do a little phone call where we can talk about and contemplate. Oh, we're going to move. Here's your 10 sitting, standing, moving protocols. Let's move through the year. And that's how we do it. It takes 2 years around the sun just to recover the body. The average person's biologically, 7 to 8 years older than they are chronologically. 2 years to make a 50-year-old a 50-year-old. And then it takes another, 3 years of practice, which we call longevity practice, to really get the light body, the 12 meridians, everything firing so you can move now. Before, we're just hopefully you can stand and get things functioning. Now we want to have a great range of motion and a strong understanding of really what's going on here. And then another 5 years of just going through it so it becomes you. And that's when you start to learn, to really see these patterns, understand the energetic anatomy, and understand how to this is what you do. It's like, I've been doing this, I don't even know anymore, a long time, decades, and I'm always doing it. I train every day. Do I pencil? Oh, I got to train now. It's like, do you pencil in? Oh, I got to eat. So, and this is the winter. So now I'm working on all things winter, but I'm getting ready for the spring because I dig the spring. But it's like, so I'm doing bone. I use wooden man, boom, 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 boom. Shake the bones, rattle the bones. The tapping is good, but that's beginners. But if you know a 108 set where you can strike this wooden man with all of the, the bones of your body, boom, 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 shake the bones, rub the dit dot into the skin, do this. And then the meditation, the contemplation, I do it. I mean, yesterday I probably did it 3 hours, but it's not like, I had my kid sitting there eating, then he'd climb up it and say, get off, it's not a climbing tool, so it's not like you bow in, hit a gong, put your headband on. It's just life. It's just what you do. And then you read, you do this. So after a while, you don't have to do anything. It's just being, but if you look back, you say, holy, how much time did I spend reading this stuff, training, sitting, standing? A lot this week, and as you get older, that becomes really your job. The older you get, the more time you have to spend maintaining your body, to balance out the remodeling hormones versus the demolition hormones. So you can try and hopefully randomly pull it off, or you can look at, who's been doing this for thousands of years and what have been the results. Baking is not random. It's precise. And I would have to say balancing the mind, the body, and the spirit is probably as complicated as making a strudel, probably. Do you see it? So there's a process here that we want to adhere to. Okay.